right now, I don't want people to worry about it. And I really would prefer, we can discuss it more in depth. But we're thinking that probably it won't be implemented until January 1 of 2022. Then the last item I wanted to update you all on is, as you may recall, there was a bill that was passed, and I apologize, I don't have the bill number here, but it was requiring all state agencies and institutions of higher ed to revise their ADA signage. And the difference that they were trying to change was there was a forward movement in the person in the wheelchair. And the bill directed OSA to submit to the US Department of Justice by January 2021, a letter requesting approval for that change. That letter was sent. You should be aware that there is only one US federal department that has been given approval to use that new signage, and that's the US Department of Treasury. It has been denied approval by every state that has requested approval of the signage change. Thus far, we've not seen anything else from them. And so I am actually not thinking that it will be approved, but I do want to make sure that everybody's aware that that has not gone into effect. And please do not try to implement that signage change because it may not be happening. So with that, unless you all can think of, Tana, Rod, Garth, is there anything else you can think of that I was supposed to cover? Or, okay. All right, great. So with that, I'm just going to get out of everybody's way, and thank you all for doing this. If we have people that have missed today or haven't been able to sign on, we get another chance. And I do appreciate you being patient with our glitches. So thank you very much. Oh, this is me too. Sorry, guys. Sorry, guys. All right.
Okay.
So instruction updates. The instructions are updated nearly every year. I can't think of a year that they haven't been. So there are a couple takeaways you need. Number one, the most important thing is that we have gone to a colorized process. So if you try to use an old format, could you go back? Thanks. If you try to use an old format, your submission will be rejected. So you need to use the appropriate color format every year. We'll be changing them every year. And we're doing this because we change the forms, and when you use older forms, you lose information in your submittal, and you'll lose calculations, you'll lose all sorts of things. So that's the approach that we're taking, just because there are some people that continually try to use old forms. The blue text will indicate a change in the instruction. The red text is a very important note that we want you to pay attention to. And also, lastly, because we design them specifically the way we do, modifications of the forms are not permitted. And so where I've seen that happen most often is people will modify the art in public places, or they'll mess with the formula at the bottom. Please do not do that, because if you do that, it hurts you. And so I really need everybody to please be aware of that. And we're here to help you. No, Dave Detweiler, no, it's not going to delay the prevailing wage. No, you have to have, as the legislation says, you have to have your approvals by your governing boards if you're institutions of higher education by July 1. So no, you need to get those approvals done. You should have done them last year, quite honestly. But anyway, so if everybody could please not modify the forms, look at the red text, no, that's an important note. Look at the blue text, no, that's a change. So with that, I think I'm done. Is that right, guys? I'm not done. Okay. All right. So sorry, guys. There are critical dates. May 3rd is the last date to submit your facility program plans to OSA for state agencies. Remember, this is just for state agencies. For current year capital construction projects, June 28th, all of our OSA visits need to be completed by June 28th. And July 6th is the due date for all forms to OSA. And that date is driven by OSPB. So please take a look at those dates. Please be prompt in your submittal so that we can keep moving forward with the process, so we can be the best advocate we can be for you. And obviously, you're going to be hearing from a lot of us before the session is over, that we're gonna start doing some of our visits before the session is over. So with that, am I done? I'm done. Thanks, guys.
Hello, my name is Paula Greenwood, and I started with OSA in January of last year. It's been an eye-opening year. I feel that OSA is here to help support all of our state agencies and institutions of higher education. And I came upon this, many of you have probably seen the movie Jerry Maguire. And basically it's saying, help me help you. He's saying this to Rod Tidwell, his football player, and he's trying to support him. But in order for Jerry Maguire to support Rod, he needs Rod's help. So with OSA, we are trying to support you. And in order to do that, we need your help in order for us to support you. I hope that makes some sense. So help me help you. Next slide. What we're going to be doing is trying to, well, not trying to, we are going to implement a standard for naming our files. Any of the files that are sent into OSA, we need to have the agencies follow a standard. Basically, it has the agency name, the year, the form ID, and there may be a priority number. We'll talk about that a little bit later, and a short project name. There are examples on the following slides. The file names cannot be more than 70 characters, including the spaces. We are no longer going to have dashes or underscores, that sort of thing within the file name. We have such a structure that we are so deep into the state that when we get long names, our files become corrupt, and we can't. OSA has asked us to shorten the names and to talk to you all about shortening names, etc. And so we need to make sure that we have no underscores, no symbols or dashes, except for, of course, in the fiscal year. Also, no links or password protected files. This makes it very difficult for us to get into the files, and sometimes may corrupt things as well. When we have revisions, we are asking that you identify your revision instead of spelling out the word revision just at the end of the file name. Just identify with R1 for revision 1, R2 for revision 2, and so on. The files that come in with a lot of the dashes and that do not meet these standards will be rejected. The next slide. This is an example of the annual forms. You can see the agency acronym. There's 1 to 5 characters there. The fiscal year is a total of 7 characters, and the form name can be anywhere from 6 to 13 characters. It depends on the project priority. That can be 2 characters, 1 through 10 or 12 or whatever it is. A project name, we're asking again that you shorten or abbreviate the project names. So for building, you would not have to spell out the word building, we would just ask that you shorten it to BLDG. That's an easy acronym for building. So a total, with all of those, a total of less than 70 characters is what we're asking. Next slide. Here's the capital construction, capital renewal. As you notice in the form name, we are no longer using a dash. There's no longer a dash for the 5P. This is important. Again, we're trying to save characters so that we don't get corrupt files. And I believe, Rod, we're going to be posting these samples online. Is that correct?
Yes, I'll be creating a web page for these presentations and the annual meetings, and I sent that link in the chat box.
Okay, so yeah, we'll be showing you this example on the web page, and if you have questions, you're definitely more than welcome to ask me, and I'll help you try to find a halfway decent solution to making the characters or making the file name acceptable. Next slide. So this is the controlled maintenance. Again, you can see with the acronyms, there's some agencies. For instance, we're using DPA Camp George West down on the 1, 2, 3, the third file down or third row down. Again, there's no dash between DPA and CGW. The only dash again is in the fiscal year. No dashes between the CMN and again, shortening the name to BLDG. And we want to be able to look at the file name and be able to ascertain what project it actually is. So if you need help with that, you're welcome to contact me at, whenever you need. It's like, again, help us help you. And in order for us to help you, we have to sort these files. There are so many agencies. We have over 43 agencies, and each agency can have, 3 to 10, 12 projects. And then they send in a multitude of files. And with that, we have to sort all of these different files. And if you're not using your acronym, your agency acronym at the front of the file, and if you're using underscores, etc., it makes it very difficult for us to sort and to respond to this in a timely fashion. As you can see on the third row there, we use the project priority number, and it's 07 and just instead of just a 7, because again, it's 2 characters. So that would say, okay, on our list of 7 priorities, this is a number 7. If you have a number 1, it would just be 01. I don't know. Hopefully that's explanatory there. Next slide. So naming photos. Photos must be identified by the agency and projects. Last year, we received quite a few photos that were just numbers, just a picture, and the actual project wasn't identified. So it really helps us out to know what project the photo is for. Photos must be in PDF or JPEG format. This is very important. Photos must be submitted per project. And you can submit numerous photos for each project in one PDF file, but you cannot combine with different project photos. Labels for the photos should be outside as presented below. The boiler room, that's the correct way to identify the image, making sure that your label is outside. We also have been sent maps, and maps are very important. We need you to submit at least 2 site maps. One site map should be unmodified, meaning just plain straight site map, nothing, no information on it other than, a site map. And then the other would be the site map with the project information. Next slide. The documents for submittals. The current year, fiscal year forms must be used every year. The form content may be modified every year by OSA. Sometimes there are little tweaks. Sometimes we've actually deleted columns or added information that is necessary. And each year we're going to use a new color every year. So it's going to be a yearly thing to ensure that we get the right forms and to ensure that you're using the right forms and that we capture the correct information. Next slide. So form updates may be modified by OSA yearly, as I said before. We want you to use the new forms. They're going to be colored. This year's forms for fiscal year 22-23 are goldenrod in color. The blue text on the forms and in the instructions basically shows that there's a change. Failure to use the new forms can cause documents to be rejected. The forms should be sent to Paula Greenwood, me, and the agency's OSA representative. Corrected or revised forms should also be sent to both the representative and Paula Greenwood with the revision number at the end of the document name. Next slide. In addition to submitting all the forms to OSA, executive departments are also required to send CCCR forms to OSPB as indicated within the 1.7 budget request submittal transmittal. All links and password protection must be removed prior to submission. Next slide. That's it. So help us help you, and we'll get through this again. Thank you very much.
So good afternoon, everyone. It's Tana Lane. We're going to go over some of our form changes at this point. If there's no questions in the chat, I didn't see any more. But Rod or Paula, please interrupt me if you see a question I can get on for everyone. Okay. So I wanted to mention that DPA, if you has updated our website. If you haven't already played around with it, a few things have moved around. You will find all the annual forms in state buildings, capital construction forms and instructions. Once you're there, scroll on down to annual facility management reporting forms, which is section 4 in our instructions. The first form we want to talk about is shown on the screen, the CCR Status Report form. You may notice we've removed a couple of columns in the percentages. We just have found that an antiquated status that isn't as useful as it once was. So we've removed that. But in its place, we added column 9, which is project delivery method. When you click on the cell there, you'll find pull downs so you can select design bid build, CMGC, design build lump sum, design build GMP, and then other. So please use other if your project is only funded as a study. So that would mean you used a consultant agreement. Otherwise, the AE agreement that you use will begin to dictate that delivery method. If you have several contractor agreements using different methods, you'll want to note the largest of the projects within that column 9. And then you get to take advantage of our other new column, which is column 14, notes. This is the place where you note all of your various delivery methods, as well as if your project is a P3. Please don't put P3 in column 9. We really want to know what kind of contracting method you're using there. And then it's very useful to know that it's a P3 should we be asked by the various parties that ask us for interesting data that seems insignificant, but it's significant to somebody. So our do's and don'ts are below the illustration. Please use your project title that was with the appropriated legislation. Generally that's the long bill, but as you know, we've got 267, 1408, who knows what will come next year. Do not use the name that you used on your project request. Please use the one that you find on your appropriation. Use only one line for each approved addition to your spending authority or appropriation or supplemental. So if you've got a fully cash funded project, you add cash to it. It's not, you've gone to the limit. I forget what the limit is for higher ed, but if you haven't hit that cap and you've added funds, feel free to add that additional dollar value. But if it is appropriated and you have to get a supplemental or you have new legislation, please use a second line or third line as needed to add those funds. And then finally, please provide OSA with a project number on any of your self-funded projects. And that doesn't mean if you use a project number that is different than the controller dictated number, we don't want to see that. If you have a controller dictated number, that's what needs to be there. But if you have a self-funded project, give us something so that as we go through the 3-year process with an individual project, that we can track it each and every year and don't have to try and figure out what project it is. And then when you submit your closeout documentation, everything is consistent with the same project number from year 1 until closeout. Next slide, please. So again, it's very similar to what we've done with the capital gosh, I'm having a brain lapse here, your cash funded and your capital renewal projects. We removed the 2 columns that reported the percentage of spending, but in their place, we added column 9 for project delivery method. Again, the same pull downs. We added column 13, other, also here. And the primary function in here is for transfers in and out. So I know some agencies and institutions have put their transfers within columns 3 or 4. Please don't do that. Those are strictly for the appropriated dollar value. Anything that you've added, you are welcome to note it in column 13, but don't change columns 3 and 4. So related to that, if you transferred money out, consider that money 100% committed. If your project's nearly closed out and you've transferred funds, then show it as committed. Don't make it look like it's only 60% when you're done with the project. Again, we also ask that you use only one line for each appropriation and that the project title aligns with the legislation that it corresponds with. And so if there aren't any questions, that was the down and dirty. I don't want to read verbatim from the instructions, but that's what's changed and that's what we anticipate you can do for us.
All right, it's my share now to talk. The building inventory spreadsheet. To start off with, we didn't make any changes to that, but there's always been some errors, issues on entering information. The first one is the building name. Sometimes they do change. I know CU Boulder is changing two of their names. One of theirs is called Temporary Building. It's finally changing after 70 years. Please, in the cell that has Temporary Building, put in the new name and add a comment to that cell indicating this is a new name. If the building doesn't exist anymore for some reason, it got demolished, sold, whatever, take that information on that row, copy and actually cut and paste that information to below this totals cell. So it shows up here for record keeping that you don't have that building anymore. And so it just shows up that 1 year and next year it's gone. Columns 4, 5, and 6. Those are the square footage values of a building. If it do not enter 0 for any of those cells, it makes it hard for me to sort through that information. So yeah, just put in the building square footage, either from risk management, or if you're institutional higher education and you're self-insured, from your own inventory database. Column number 6, vacant buildings. The information that's in here for a vacant building should also be in either columns 4 or 5. It's still an academic building, it's still an auxiliary building, but now the square footage of that building is vacant. And so that's, and anything that's in volume column 6 for a vacant building, we should have at one point received your vacant building form, or if not, we do need that form. Column 9, date acquired. Only enter the date acquired if it's different from the date built. It's very important. Also, if you don't have a date built, please enter a date built. There are still a few agencies or some buildings where they just showed up because there's no date built. Please give us a date built. Columns 10 and 11, date of facility audit and facility condition index value. If you have an audit date, we expect you have a value. If you have a value for an audit, we expect a date for that audit. When I see a value for a building with no date, it makes me wonder, was an audit really done? Or you sat at your desk and decided it's a 65 without really going out and doing an audit. We do want the audit information. We want that audit information as backup to all control maintenance request. And so we do want a date to indicate that, yes, you did an audit. The other thing is, a couple of years ago, we added the infrastructure tab. In this building inventory tab, please put down, enter the buildings that are on that baseball field, football, whatever that track is, but we don't want the square footage of the field. We just want the information about the buildings on that field. The building infrastructure tab is where you put the size of that field in acres. If there's buildings on that field, it goes back to the building inventory. Again, columns 4, 5, and 6, please leave them blank if there's no value, because when I merge all the agency's information to one large spreadsheet, it's easy for me to sort through things and manipulate the data, get totals if there's nothing in those cells. If there's a value in there, I actually have to go through and delete those zeros in it. Well, as Paula said before, filled out wrong, I may reject it and send it back to you. Vacant buildings. We really didn't change this form that much. What we did ask for now is a county parcel number. We're not asking you at this point to go back in for the vacant buildings you've already submitted to us. We don't want you to resubmit this form. Through the great work that Chris has done, we've actually been capturing those county parcel numbers. But if you do have a vacant building, a new vacant building, we do want you to add that county parcel number. The other thing about this form is if this building gets repurposed, therefore it's not vacant anymore, we need to know that also. There's been some buildings out there that an agency either sold, demolished, repurposed, but they're still showing up on a vacant building list because we're not finding out about it. And it's very important that our vacant building list is accurate because it is shared with legislators. The acquisition disposition form, we are asking that this form gets sent to us also on July 6th, not later in the fall. Our office has a lot of work to do in the fall, and the sooner we get some information that's fairly static, the sooner we can actually get it processed and get that section done in our annual report, so we can really focus on other things that actually was more important or critical, but it does allow us to control our internal workload. Again, within the acquisition disposition form, we do want that county parcel number. The other thing is, both for vacant buildings and acquisitions, we do want pictures. Again, we're not allowing TIFs. No one sent us TIFs for years, and so therefore we come to the conclusion we're either getting PDFs or JPEGs of the pictures of the buildings, and so it's not doing something wrong, it's just realization no one's sending us TIFs. And the transmittal form. I've highlighted 4-5 cells where it's not really a yes, no, or not applicable, is the quantity. If you're sending us 1 or 4 or 10 vacant building forms, we want to know the number of forms you're sending us. Energy performance contracts. Most agencies are only sending 1, but some agencies, because they've done multiple phases, they might be, or multiple locations, might be sending me more than 1 EPC form. High performance buildings. 2 things on that. 1, fill this out, indicate the number of forms. The other is, as soon as you get funds appropriated for that project, prior to hiring design form, would like to see this form filled out and sent to me. It's more of a tracking process than asking you to do anything yet, other than send me that form so I can track what buildings are going through a LEED, Green Globes, or any other third-party verification process. And I think that's it. I know we gave you this a long meeting, but we weren't sure how long it's going to go. So we're actually kind of, I'm going to look at the Gargie's question. If you did send a building to me that you think is vacant, not vacant, but has been demolished, yeah, you can give me a call to make sure I capture it. There's no problem doing a direct email to me to confirm that I noticed that your building was either names was changed, that you removed it from the list so it doesn't show up. I mean, that's always a good thing to do. If you have any questions about any of the forms, and if we saw the information you thought it was hidden, do give us a call. We're more than willing to work with you. The other thing is, since I've been doing these forms for 20+ years, if you have any questions on any of the forms, do give me a call. If Paula's not around, Paula can't help you, call me up, call Tana up. We're very versed in our forms, and we're more than willing to help you fill it out prior to the submittal than having us take a look at it in July and ask and wonder why you did it wrong. Okay. You're right, Jim Ramsey. On an annual basis, our office has sent out the status of ongoing projects. I and Tana will be working on that later, probably sometime in April, not confirmed. We need to work through some L1s, L2s. We also like to get to know what is funded through the long bill before we send that out. So, I mean, as soon as we have an idea what's in the long bill and it's signed, we will be able to properly turn around and send out to everyone the current projects we are actively tracking. just because your agency sent in an L1 or L2 doesn't mean it's complete for us, and it still shows up in our database. So until we accept your L1s and L2, we are still tracking them. And we will indicate that and talk to you about them. And so when we send out the spreadsheet in May of our active projects we're tracking, if they show up and you thought you're done, give Tana a call and she can explain to you either what's missing on the L2 or, yeah, it's here, we just haven't had time to process it. Do you want to add anything to that, Tana?
I think you summed it up perfectly. You know, if you've sent it in, sometimes it takes me, you know, weeks to get to it because of our backlog of everything else going on in the office right now. But I try and get to them just as quick as I can and get them uploaded in our database. So if it's not shown the way you expect it, please reach out so we can figure out, was it an oversight on my part, or is it something I'm still waiting on that I have yet to receive and approve?
And so, I mean, we still have time left. I don't know if there's any real estate and leases remain separate. Please explain that, Rhonda. Are we talking about on the building inventory? And yes, on the building inventory for all agencies. And Rhonda, you're actually not the only one who has sometimes tendency to put on the building inventory, either contents or leased buildings. The building inventory is only state-owned land and state-owned buildings, or school-owned land and school-owned building. Leases show up in a different report that Chris and Brandon track. Any other additional questions?
Okay, so if we don't have any additional questions, what we'll do is we are looking to make sure that we're able to share this information. There was a question earlier about sharing the slides. And so we will look to do that, and we'll tell you more about that later. And then also, if someone in your group did not get on the call that needed to, please, if you could reach out to us. Those Connex containers those are technically storage boxes. Those are not buildings. And I know you've gotten a lot of new Connex containers because our office has been instrumental in buying those. And just so everybody's aware, part of the reason that we're a little bit behind on stuff is we have effectively our office spent about $53 million on the COVID hospitals. And we are now in the process of helping set up points of distribution for the vaccine. So we're not out of our pandemic extra jobs yet, but we hope to be. We hope by next fall we will be out of there. So I do apologize. I know that you all are dealing with a lot, and we are too, and it gets a little frustrating. I'm 3 days away from my 1-year anniversary of nothing but COVID planning. So I'm certainly understanding of what you all are going through, and I really do appreciate you taking the time today. So we'll try to do some sort of method of being able to share these slides and share the presentation. And if someone didn't get on this time that wanted to get on, just reach out to us, give us a call, or send us an email, and we'll make sure we walk you through it so you are able to get on next time around. Does anybody else have any other questions, comments? And if not, we could give you 6 minutes back in your life. Anybody? I'm not seeing anything in there, and no hands. So Anyway, with that, I thank you so very, very much. And reach out if you need us. Otherwise, we will talk to you later. Thanks. Bye.